Something a little different this time. I thought it might be fun to compare the various Superman movies since we have a new one out right now. I generally enjoy superhero movies since I'm essentially just a big kid with creaky joints, although the genre is wearing a little thin for me with Marvel fatigue and whatnot. Some spoilers ahead if you have not seen these, but I'm going more for tone and fun rather than detailed plot points. The character of Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, first appearing in Action Comics in 1938, and has been a very durable and recognizable superhero ever since. Now, I should mention I'm not a comic book reader, so I haven't followed all the character variations over the decades, just focusing on the movies I've seen. Max Fleischer Studios produced animated Superman cartoon shorts in the early 1940s, staying close to the comic book version. These cartoons actually introduced flight, interestingly enough, whereas early comics had Superman leaping huge distances but not actually flying. They are very much of their time, for good or ill, and come across like an animated comic book. You can find them on YouTube pretty readily and are worth a look if you've never seen them. Kirk Alyn was the first live-action Superman in two black-and-white serials from 1948 and 1950. These were delightful in a hammy Flash Gordon sort of way, getting around the flying by making Superman an animated character against the live background when airborne. It sounds stupid, but it's sort of charming and actually points towards the use of digital doubles in later movies. George Reeves was the TV Superman of the 1950s in The Adventures of Superman, and was probably the personification of the character for a whole generation until Christopher Reeve came along. The 1978 Superman movie came with the tagline, "You Believe a Man Can Fly." I saw this in the theater at 21 and was completely charmed. This featured the origin story with Jor-el and Lara on Krypton, sending a baby son Kal-el to Earth to be found and raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, and eventually becoming Superman. Reeve really captured both the well-meaning hapless Clark Kent and the stoic but kindly Superman personas, and this is so far the highest-grossing Superman movie at over $1 billion worldwide when measured in 2025 dollars. It also had a musical score by John Williams, which never hurts. The flying combined wire work, green screen, flying puppets, and a new rear projection technique called Zoptic, which allowed some more dynamic movement in the process. To my eyes, the green screen is often the least successful, with obvious matte lines and color mismatches. Of course, the process was all done via optical printing, and in those days there was no digital compositing available. Some of the miniature work was great, some kind of horrible. Not sure if that was due to a rushed schedule or lack of money or what. The follow-up, Superman 2, amped things up with 3 Kryptonian baddies teaming up with Lex Luthor. It was largely enjoyable despite some total whiplash from having 2 different directors. Unfortunately, Superman 3 and 4 quickly dipped in quality due to poor writing and shoddy production, and are probably best forgotten, despite Christopher Reeve's best efforts. Superman Returns from 2006 was a homage to the original 2 movies, but with a more angsty Superman. Brandon Routh was good in both personas, and the thrilling plane crash rescue scene felt like a Max Fleischer cartoon brought to life, making excellent use of digital doubles. The movie leaned heavily into Superman as a Jesus figure, with him sacrificing himself for humanity and apparently coming back from the dead. Though, as far as I can tell, Superman was actually patterned more as a Moses character, given up by his parents to avoid danger, then raised by another culture, and so on. Man of Steel from 2013 brought us Henry Cavill as a more quote-unquote realistic Superman, more serious as Superman, less of a doofus as Clark Kent. It gave us an extended origin story with quite a bit of time spent on Krypton, and several incidents when Clark/Kal-el was growing up. It also re-established the notion that the S on his chest is not S for Superman, but a Kryptonian symbol for hope, and also the family crest for the House of El. This was implied in the 1978 movie, as Jor-el also had the S on his clothing on Krypton. My understanding is that it later became part of the comic canon too, which is kind of interesting. Most of the superpowered stuff was great, with baddies tossing rental trucks at helicopters and so on, and General Zod again being a good villain. The finale was relentlessly noisy and destructive rather than spectacular, though I liked the movie overall. Cavill reprised his role in Batman v Superman and Justice League. Both were fun, if uneven, especially Justice League, which suffered from directorial changes like Superman 2. Which brings us to 2025's Superman, starring David Corenswet and directed by James Gunn. Setting aside any online drama over comments made by cast and crew, and it's become an unfortunate trend these days, but the movie was fun. Very much a comic book style movie, funny and sometimes ridiculous, but not stupid. The super stuff was pretty great, as you'd expect from 2025, with flying that looked both fast and graceful. This Superman can be battered and bruised, and in fact is in pretty bad shape in the opening few minutes. This is in contrast to Superman Returns, where Superman is shot in the eyeball at point-blank range and literally does not even blink. This is also the first appearance of Krypto the Superdog in live action that I know of, and he was so cute, while being reportedly an entirely digital character. Well done, animators. Corenswet's Clark Kent is less socially awkward than Christopher Reeve's portrayal, but both Clark and Superman were very true to the good man trying to help people trope. The world feels somewhat realistic with wars and social media, but there are also other metahumans and comic book plot elements rather than strict realism. A couple of interesting things here about Superman's birth parents in this movie, who we see only via a fragment of a treasured recording Superman keeps. They speak Kryptonian, which I don't think we've seen before. Second, there is a major plot point I won't reveal. It was quite shocking, and it provided an emotional dilemma for Kal-el, which made him an even more sympathetic character. Lex Luthor is again the main baddie, and he comes across as a borderline psychotic in this version. Again, not a big comic reader, so not sure if this is on point. I always thought of Luthor as more of a sort of driven evil genius type, but this guy is a little beyond that. So there you have it. Since the original Christopher Reeve movie, the quality in box office results have been up and down, but various actors have usually done a good job with the Superman/Clark Kent character, who still seems to be popular with the public based upon the projected box office of the new movie. So that's another video in the can. If you found this informative or interesting, please consider liking and subscribing down below. And remember, be excellent to each other.